Hi everyone, I'm Peter, the CEO of ComCrop, and I just wanted to thank everybody for the overwhelming outreach of support that we've received in the last little while. You know, it's really hard during this lockdown period for everybody, and our team is working as hard as we can to produce as much food to deliver to the supermarkets and the online stores as quickly as we possibly can. Obviously, we're still small, so we're working as hard as we can to grow this greenhouse out, the goal of that being to produce as much food as possible for the Singapore community. We can't do that without your support, and that's why we appreciate it so much. Many of you also asked whether to come down and offer us support or volunteer, or even just come down to see what we're doing. And while we would love to have everybody come down here, obviously that's not possible during lockdown. So what I thought I'd do is show you inside our greenhouse and some of the things that we're doing, and then hopefully after the pandemic we can organise some time for everybody to come down and get involved. So welcome inside Greenhouse 1. Behind me you'll see some really nice big green basil that's just about ready to go. That'll be harvested tomorrow. But what we should start is right at the start. Let's start with the seedlings. These are the little babies. Here we go here. So you can see there's some little tiny baby ones here. So these are the seedlings that go inside our little oasis trays. Each oasis tray holds over 500 individual seeds that will grow into the vegetables that we're going to harvest and send to the supermarkets. See, as we move down the trays, they get a little bit bigger each time, and that's because we plant some every day, and then every day they get bigger. And once they get big enough, then we can transplant them to the bigger growing channels. So you can see this basil is getting quite big. And then here's some lettuce. Here's some smaller lettuce, and then some larger basil over here. Actually, no, this is chisin. So this chisin is just about ready to be transplanted. Okay, so here's some lettuce, and this is ready to be transplanted already. It's not big enough. Just like this basil over here. So this basil, definitely big enough to transplant, and probably a little bit too big, but I think we ran out of space. So this will get transplanted over to our growing systems over here. And here is where it'll spend the next 2 to 4 weeks of its life as it gets bigger and bigger and eventually large enough to be harvested, which is what these ones are over here. So the water noise you hear behind me is because we're growing using hydroponic technology. That means growing vegetables without the use of soil. We use water and we recycle it through the systems, which means we use actually 90% less water than a traditional soil-based farm. So the water actually gets pumped up to these individual grow systems, and you can see there, here's the water there. There it is. Trying to waste some. So that gets pumped through the systems and then gets recycled back into the nutrient tank over here, which is over here. See that? So each individual system has its own tank. We recycle the water, and then we use computers and sensors to monitor not only the pH level but also the nutrient level, which is basically the fertilizer that we're giving the vegetables to grow, just the same as if they were soil-based vegetables. So in our greenhouse we're growing 3 different types of vegetables at the same time. So this is some of the larger basil I showed you earlier, and on the other side here's some of that chisin as well. So after it was seedlings, then we transplanted to these bigger ones over here. And you can see as we go further down the growing channels, they get bigger and bigger. So these ones were planted a little bit low, maybe about a week or so ago. They're transplanted over to here. So probably in another week or 2, they'll be ready for harvest. It takes about 6 weeks to get from seedling all the way to harvest size. And I'll show you the harvest size in just a second. So I want to let you in a little secret. When you're choosing your vegetables, don't be scared of little tiny holes like this one. See that? Some little tiny holes. That means the caterpillar or something's had a little bit of a taste. That's a good thing. That means it's healthy, it hasn't got pesticides on it, and it's good for your family to eat. No chemicals, no pesticides. And that's what we're doing here in Singapore's first rooftop farm greenhouse. We do our best to try to get rid of the bugs, and you'll see everywhere around the greenhouse that we use things like these sticky paper strips to try and get rid of the insects and caterpillars and moths, but sometimes they just get in anyway. So if you see any little holes in your vegetables like this, don't throw it away. The insects wouldn't eat it unless it was yummy. At this end of the greenhouse I want to show you our lettuce. Now lettuce is not going to be in the supermarket for the next week or so because they're a bit small. A couple of weeks ago, when the supplies got disrupted from Malaysia, we had to harvest everything. So these guys are probably still a couple of weeks away from being ready to be eaten, but as soon as they are, we'll have them in the supermarkets and you can enjoy them. So thanks for joining me on my little tour of Singapore's first and only rooftop greenhouse. We plan to expand this out. So you can see behind me, our greenhouse is about 800 square meters of growing space. We intend to take over this entire rooftop. You can see a lot of it behind me there. And that would give us about 5,000 to 6,000 square meters of growing space, which would increase our yield by 10. Now that's really, really important because I'm sure many of you will tell me you can't find our produce in the supermarket because we can't produce enough just yet. So we want to grow as much as possible, and that way we can contribute as much as we can to the food supply in Singapore, so that when terrible situations like what we're facing right now happen, it's not such a big shock to the supply. We can grow more in Singapore if we all work together, so please support not only ComCrop, but all Singapore produce grown here in Singapore, including fish and eggs and everything else that's done here as well. You'd be surprised how many things are done here in Singapore. So again, thank you very much, and I hope to catch you all again soon.